What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. I hope you guys are well and warm. Happy Tuesday, baby. Last week, we went live and we had a discussion in regards to identifying plant problems and ways to address them. It was a great topic of conversation, so I wanted to give it its own entire video, edited, put together, all nice just for you guys. So let's talk about how to address and identify plant problems and try to learn about plant problems. And like I said, that's not for me. I'm not interested in trying to identify markings on the leaves or the way the botany of it all works. Just not for me. I've learned over the course of the last 15 or some, it's been longer than that. Anyways, it's been longer than that. Wow, getting old here, folks. Over the course of the last 15 years plus, I've started to learn that there's ways to identify plant problems, and then there's just way to address them that don't involve getting very technical. And it's rather simple. It's rather simple, so it won't take me too long. If you have a toxicity in something, it's very distinct from having a deficiency in something. If your plant is hungry, it's going to be yellowing from the bottom up, and it's a very consistent yellowing because it's the anatomy of the plant. This is how much I have learned, is that essentially it starts using the nutrients from the bottom up. And as those nutrients start to get used, the plant reduces the color because it's eating that nitrogen. So it's a deficiency. A toxicity, so whether you've got, let's say, like you've been feeding too much, or let's even say that you've got an acidic pot or even an alkalytic pot, it doesn't matter. Maybe you've got a toxicity or a buildup in your pot. It's going to start to show you something. It could be deficiencies, it could be toxicities, but you're going to start seeing an inconsistency of coloring amongst the plant. It won't be that green anymore. It'll start to be yellow, but on the sides of the leaves, inside the canopy, on the top of the canopy. You might start seeing that browning, that crisping of the leaves. Maybe not on the edges, maybe in the middle. That's a good indication of a toxicity. Now, pigeons, why can't you show us this? How long have you been on YouTube? I'm sorry. There are plenty of good YouTube videos out there that'll show you the difference between a toxicity and a deficiency. My channel is so locked up tight with suppression and censorship that I can't show you a herb leaf. The fact that I even have one in the thumbnail is pushing it, and I'm sure I'm going to get suppressed because of it. But anyways, I digress. If you go over to my Instagram, these are other platforms which I am a little more able to be a little more free on my expression. They are toxic, and you can identify why they're toxic. And I go through it. How do you address a toxicity? Okay, so maybe your leaves are curling. Okay, maybe you've got too much nitrogen. Maybe they're a really dark green. Maybe they're starting to crisp on the outside. Maybe they're starting to taco. Maybe you've got those brown spots in the middle. What do you do about it? Well, remember, it's very simple. You have a toxicity. What's a toxicity? You have too much of something. Okay, what is it? I don't know. I'm not here to try to figure it out, because the only way to remove one nutrient is to remove them all, and that's to apply water. Add more water. Now, I'm not saying just water like every day any different than you would regularly water, because if you do that, well, then you're gonna have overwatering issues. Water the same, but rather than incorporating any food in your regimen, just water. I got through this problem that I had with these 4 plants over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks, and it was rough because I wasn't even looking. Like, I'm lazy, guys. I'm lazy, and people, my trolls in the comments section, be like, I told you. And it's like, I've been telling you the whole time. I don't know what you understand. A lot of people give me way more credit than I deserve. It is a very simple process to grow this beautiful plant. Some people just make it incredibly difficult, and bless their soul, because it's because of them that I'm able to learn anything. And I get it. There's people for each type. You know what I mean? I know a little bit about law, but I'm not going to be a lawyer. I know how to stomp out a fire, but I'm not going to be a firefighter. So it's like, come on. When you're seeing these toxicities, apply water. Over the course of the last 3 weeks, as I mentioned, I was applying water, and I started to notice now that toxicity was changing. Now, those brown leaves don't go away. Those brown, the curling leaves, or not necessarily the curling, but the crisping, that leaf matter isn't coming back. What will come back is the color. So you need to identify at what point maybe take a picture. This is why posting your content online really helps, because you'll have that consistent diary of progress. There was clouds passing around here before the stream started, I assure you. Once you start to see that your plant, now we're identifying a toxicity, when you start to see that the coloring of the plant is starting to change. How is it changing? Well, you're just adding water, so it's losing its nutrient value. So the color of the plant is actually fading. It's getting less and less colorful. How's the new growth looking? Is the new growth, the stuff at the tops of all your tops, is it coming out green, light green? Does it still have spotting? That's going to be a key, is to determine when to stop just watering. So 3 weeks ago, it was about 2-ish weeks ago, 2.5, started to just water. Yesterday, maybe a couple days ago, that I started to see that, okay, the toxicity was changing. Now, use your equipment. You can easily determine if your toxicity is changing by testing the runoff of your water. Is it coming down? Are you at an 8.8? Are you at a 4.6? Are you at a, well, bring it back up. Bring it back up to 5.5, 6.5, whatever your medium is going to take. 7, mine is 6.7, 6.8. It works great for me. But that's me. So don't take my numbers. That's my pH, potential hydrogens. So that's me, right? So you can't take that. If you're an organic, you might need a 5.5. If you're using a different line of synthetic, you might need a 7. I can't see you going too much higher than a 7, but maybe you need a 7. I'm not sure, but that's why you're going to read the nutrient pack on the back of your or guide on your nutrients, whether it's bottled, whether it's bagged, whether you use them build a soil. They all have a recommended dose. So make sure that that's what you're following. If you have questions about your nutrients, ask the nutrient company. Don't ask the internet. Ask the nutrient company. Any company that's providing nutrients to the world will have no problem answering your questions. Okay? So go to them and figure it out. So when you start to see that your plant is starting to change color, that's when I've now started to add in my base again. Started adding back in the NPK. And then I started, I was messing with my light and stuff because my one was starting to stretch. So I brought it down. They did not like that. So I had to raise them back up. So I was also seeing a tacoing. That tacoing can be related to a number of different things. But because I was doing things, I had to remind myself that, all right, the reason you're seeing these changes is because you're making these changes. And if you're going to make changes, make one change at a time, not 2 or 3, because trying to identify what the hell happened based on what you just did is very difficult. And the exact opposite is true for identifying a deficiency. What are you deficient in? Well, depending on what you're using. If you're organic, well, maybe it's going to be a little more difficult to identify. You might have to do that. See, this is why I'm a synthetic guy. I don't have to identify anything. I got bottles for that. I'm just going to mix my nutrients, put them in the... So if I've got a deficiency, I'm going to feed more. It doesn't mean feed everything more. I start low. Start at your base and work your way up. Some companies have 3 bottles, 5 bottles, 7 bottles. I know now with your stash blend that you pre-ordered, you don't need that many bottles. You just need your base bottles, which is typically like 2, maybe 3. And Stash Blend's got you covered for all that other stuff, guys. Everything else. Your mycorrhizae, your beneficial microbes, like 4 of them. Polymer to help it take it all up. Not to mention, some of these fungi, the bacteria is actively sucking nitrogen out of the air. So it's like, just go get it. I know you're going to love it. I know you're going to love it. Okay. And then when you do go get it, take lots of pictures. Okay. And send it to us because I want to see them and test it. And everything's on the bag too. So you can see and yeah. But if you have any questions, please reach out to us. But in regards to identifying your plant problems, do you have any questions? Do you have any comments on that? Is there a way that you find that works better for you? Or are you organic and you have no choice but to be able to identify these problems? Because I could see how someone who's organic unfortunately needs to know. I say unfortunately, I'm harping on organic here, but let's be real. A lot of the times you're not going to have these problems with organic because the soil's doing a lot of the work for you, right? But anyways, that's my very monkey brain limited experience when it comes to organic. Yeah, organic.